Welcome back. The title of this mini lecture is the 1920s. Let's get into it. So, as you read more about the history of American sport and gaming in this period, the goal is for you to kind of get a sense that if you've not necessarily read a lot about the 20s, if somebody's living in the 20s, what's going on for them? What are things that they'd be aware of, kind of elements going on in their society? So we're going to talk about, again, 5 terms. So here we go. Post-war politics. All right. I know it's a broad term, but if you're living in America and it's the early 1920s, you would have been aware of, both in the country and globally, of course, the after effects of the First World War. So the First World War had ended in 1918. There were a lot of strikes around America in 1919, and you had returning veterans. If maybe you were an immigrant from certain countries, like Italy or Germany or Russia, those countries would have been in the midst of political upheaval during this period. So that would have been in the press for individuals at that time. So there would have been, certainly concerns there. The Americans are going to be involved in some of the conflicts in Russia during this period. So that's certainly something to consider. Another term for us is going to be anti-immigration. All right. So between 1921 and 1924, there had been a rising movement in the country that was deeply opposed to kind of the openness of immigration that had existed at the time. Now, immigration had decreased a bit during the First World War. But prior to that, unless someone was from China or from Japan, that largely American immigration policy was relatively open. And for those who opposed that openness, they made arguments that openness led to individuals coming in who were counter to American identity as they defined it. Now, that particular group, of course, was growing in popularity at a time when other forms of racial opposition existed. The 1920s is also the era of the KKK growing in popularity again. It is a time period where you will see the support for eugenics as well. So new legislation that is enacted in 1921 and 24 creates these restrictive quotas in immigration, and as a result, you're going to see a decline in immigration in the United States. The third term for us is flappers. So part of the 1920s, even though on one side you've got the KKK, on one side you've got anti-immigration, on the other side, prohibition is certainly present. You're seeing a redefinition of dress and behavior and public openness for women. And so you're seeing new kinds of fashion, new kinds of dress, new kinds of dance. This idea of a sort of modern woman that is, kind of this new definition identity in the 1920s. You're also seeing a new mass culture, which would be the kind of the fourth term for us. So this is the era in which mass production is leading into mass consumerism, and there's new mass marketing campaigns that are marketing these things to people. This is the era in which radios are becoming more widely purchased. This is the era in which, very commonly one is ordering something through the mail and having it delivered. Sears is incredibly popular during this particular period, but that kind of mass culture that individuals can relate to across regions was really important. And so you're going to see the growth, of course, of Hollywood films by the time you get to the end of the 1920s and again into the early 1930s. Now, another term for us, of course, is going to be the crash. Now, there had been forms of economic downturn in parts of the economy throughout the 20s. But the crash that happens at the end of 1929 is what will contribute eventually to the Great Depression. Now, the structures that would be in place today to stop such a stock market downturn from happening are not in place in 1929. And so as a direct result, it's going to be very, very difficult for Americans to recover from this, which happens in October of 1929. And it's really not until World War II that the Great Depression is able to be recovered from. So we're looking at over a decade of really economic difficulty for many living in the country. All right. Thank you very much.